referring in any way to the failings of staff or anything like that. I am just going to be doing one simple thing. Okay. I studied information technology and software engineering at university for over 2 years. And also throughout high school, where I completed individual unit electives at Monash University while I was in high school. I was also completing TAFE certificates while I was in high school. I was an academic at one point. Nowadays I am a forklift operator. My specific job role is as basically a picker. I drive a forklift, a high reach forklift, and I am responsible for moving the product from the warehouse to the packers, where it is then dispatched and confirmed and sent off to the customers. I also have previous background in spare parts interpreting. I worked for an organization, a fairly large, well-known organization in the southern states, and basically my role was to essentially operate and maintain my own warehouse within a warehouse for selling obsolete spare parts through eBay, and also helping to manage the actual invoicing process and everything like that, and the actual picking of the parts after customers place orders, and the creation of ads on eBay and all that sort of stuff. Also, my very first job was actually as a supervisor. It's probably no surprise to the people who work with me, because I hold everyone accountable. But basically, I have experience with managing people who may not know what they're doing, training people, explaining and visualizing processes, setting written processes, creating systems, basically. That's what information systems is. You analyze something, you identify the problems, you identify the needs, and you come up with solutions. They may not necessarily work. That's part of the implementation phase. Then you've got the maintenance phase, which comes afterwards. Initiation, implementation, operation, development, and maintenance. No, initiation, development, implementation, operation, and maintenance. Blah. Anyway. Oh, I failed my test. Anyway. So, basically the reason why I'm doing this is because at my current workplace there have been identified to be certain problems with practices and process that are basically making, well, our pickers and our put-away operators essentially run around like chickens with their heads cut off, because there isn't a process. Like, there is a process, but there isn't a process. And basically, because of the lack of a process, there is a window that I like to refer to as the twilight zone, which is basically when, better put up chat just in case anyone pops in to have a chat to me, which is basically when goods are received in by our team of receivers, and then in between that and it reaching our put-away operators, and then reaching our actual pickers, there are many. Basically, you may have to go look for a nut, and when I say a nut, I mean like a metal nut this big, in 15 to 20 pallets or more. Sometimes it's more like the entire fucking warehouse that you have to go search to find one nut, because it has been received in on a date, it hasn't been put away, or it's been kept somewhere because it's a committed part that's needed for an order, but only one person might know where it is, or like only, oh, it might be over there somewhere. It's in all that. We don't know exactly where it is. So what I'm doing is I'm actually going to sit down somewhere. It's in all that, and we don't know exactly use so an hour or two of my time to create a process. So I apologize for the lack of professionalism and presentation and all that sort of stuff, but at base level I am operations. That's what I do. And I don't like to rant on and on about problems. I like to find the problems and fix them, because fixing the problems makes everybody's life easier. That's what accountability is. If one person isn't doing their job properly, the shit just rolls downhill. It gets worse and worse for every person along the successive steps. Okay, so what have I got here? Has anyone ever heard of a flowchart? Yes? No? Okay. Has anyone ever heard of brainstorming? Yes? No? Okay, so brainstorming is basically where you think about ideas and you think about problems and you think about solutions and you basically go bleh and you put it everywhere. Okay? Flowcharts are where you actually start defining processes. So that's where you say, Joe Blog does this, Adam Savage does that. Right, just to use a random fucking name. So what I'm actually going to do, with copious amounts of alcohol I might add, just kidding, I've only had one drink, is I'm going to sit here and I'm going to start brainstorming about our problems, and I'm going to be putting it up on the screen using a diagrammatic representation of the ideas. So hopefully within half an hour or so, this screen should be more or less full. And we're going to need more than one screen, I'm telling you right now. Okay. So, without pointing fingers at anyone, without looking at anything beyond what we absolutely need to, initiation, we have identified the need for a problem. Solution to a problem, should I say. So, what is the problem? We are receiving in thousands of product lines which are not able to be found because after they are received and entered into the system, they disappear into a twilight zone in the period between them actually being entered into the system and being opened up for orders and them actually being present in the locations that they're supposed to be for their orders. So our pickers can't find them, basically. So you might be a flash gun of an orc, like forklift operator, I nearly said orc, and you can pick 80, 100 lines a day from pallets with 150 different parts on it. You pull down a pallet, it's got 150 different parts, you got to walk around it, you got to identify it, you got to find out what carton it's in, you got to get the part out, you don't know where it might be. Okay, so from my perspective as a picker, let's straight away identify a problem. Okay? Straight up. And I'm not going to use proper flowchart like representations at this stage because this is still brainstorming, okay? So we open up this thing which has got process in it. This is the box that we use for a process. This might be a, well, you've got other different ones which are decisions, which are like your ifs. Like, if we do this, then we do that. Otherwise, we do this. And then we've got terminators. So this is the end result of our objective, the end of the process. All right? But for the moment, I'm just going to use process boxes because this is brainstorming. Okay? Okay. Let's start off with a simple one. I'll go right up to the top, up here, or whatever. And well, actually, I might start using some proper ones. Okay, so I'm probably going to use the wrong ones. Oh fuck, I remember having to do this in university. Anyway, so basically what I'm trying to explain to you is that I have done this at university, at a university level. So I'm not going to start off with the basic levels because I know that to do it right, you have to do it right. And in the meantime, we're just going to start off with some basic things. Okay, so a part can't be identified on a pallet. A part cannot be identified on a pallet because labels, which are easily, which should I say, should be easily able to be identified or otherwise marked on a visible area of a carton. A part cannot be identified on a pallet because labels, which should be easily able to be identified or otherwise marked on a carton, on a visible area of a carton, are not visible. Okay, now this is probably a really big one because you have your forklift operators who are chasing around all day, right? And pulling down pallet after pallet after pallet after pallet. And they can pull down a pallet and within 2 minutes find one part out of 200 different parts on that pallet. Because all they do is they have their pick slip or whatever, which has got a part number on it. They walk around the pallet, they check every carton, and then they see the carton that they've got. Oh, it's that one. Okay, yeah. And then they get the carton off the pallet or undo the plastic wrapping, pull the carton out, get the part out, put it back in, pull the plastic wrapping back down, maybe tape it back up a little bit, maybe put a bit more wrap around it if it's necessary for safety, then you put it back up in the rack. This only takes 5 minutes, less than 5 minutes per part. So if we're already talking about KPIs, the established KPI for this in a practice in a warehouse, which is actually operating efficiently, where you have to pull down something from like 7 or 8 meters, pull down a pallet, that takes a minute. You look for the part, that takes a minute. You try to get the part off the pallet, that takes a minute. You fix the pallet, that takes a minute. You put the pallet back up, that takes a minute. So that's about 5 minutes. And that's actually quite a strenuous KPI. That's not a KPI that is unachievable, but it is certainly a KPI in this sort of environment which is high. Okay, so we'll drop it down a little bit. We'll make it 60, so they don't need to find one every so and so. So the picker's got a couple of pick slips and they've got 10 lines that they need to go look for. That should only take them 50 minutes, right? Or an hour, roughly. So they might have 3 different orders. 2 of those orders have got 3 parts on it, and 1 order's got 4 parts on it. And then the locations which are actually listed on that pick slip, the forklift operator, whatever, will have that in front of them, and then they go look for it, they go around the warehouse, they go to a location, they pull the pallet down, they get that part, they put it back up, they go to the next location. That's the process. Now, what happens when a forklift operator cannot find a part is, in most warehouses, you have a scanner. So you go, put in the part number, and you go, okay, what's the secondary location? Down, down, down. Yeah. Oh, okay. There should be one on that pallet over there. Then you go get that, right? That costs you an extra 2 minutes. Right? Extra 2 to 3 minutes because you've pulled down a pallet, you can't find the part on it, you got to go look for it on another pallet. Now, another interesting thing to note is that most warehouses also have their stock listed by location quantity. So one location might have a quantity of 200, another location might have a quantity of 400, and in the inventory management system, this will be listed appropriately. Unfortunately, with the specific situation that I'm working in, the specific warehouse that I am working in, due to the way that sales orders are committed, and probably due to a lack of training with operation of JD Edwards, which is an Oracle type inventory management system, the quantities are listed only on the primary. So you have your primary location, you have your secondary locations, and you have your tertiary locations, which are basically just extra secondary locations. That's probably the best way to put it. And what actually becomes important to note at this stage is that if an order is committed to a location, you cannot actually change the location of that product number, that SKU, to a different location without putting the order back into the system and cancelling it and then pulling the order back out again. It doesn't work, at least not with the way that they do it. So if, say, someone wants to put away something in a location, oh crap, there's not enough room on the pallet to put it there, we'll go put it here. Okay, let's change that location, or the primary's run out. And rather than, say, using like changing a secondary to become a primary, because you've got 50 cartons of so-and-so on a secondary pallet, okay, let's just update it in the inventory management system and make it the primary. It doesn't work. It will not work because there are orders committed against it. So, you can imagine the despair of a forklift operator when they have their pick slip, they go to a thing and they, oh shit, it's not there. And then, because there's no scanners or anything like that, then they have to get off their forklift, walk halfway across the warehouse, jump onto a computer, type in one part number and find out that it came in 2 days ago. And it is on an old location that is no longer being used, that no longer exists, and basically it's in the stage where it's in between being put away into a new location and having been received. So from the receivers to the new location, and it's in that little twilight zone gap right there. Now, I've done same-day dispatch and same-day deliveries. Basically, the accountability level of it is that parts need to be traced from when they are entered into the system, and they are able to be put against a hard commit, which is when an order is basically, okay, we've committed this, we're going to take it out of stock in the inventory management system. It is now committed. That part is now part of an order. Then that order now needs to be completed. A forklift operator needs to go find that part and basically bring it to our packers so that we can pack it, confirm it, and send it. And basically, as a forklift operator, you sit there and you go, oh, okay, so it's somewhere in that pile of 20, 30 pallets of crap, thousands of product lines, and you're searching through 20 or so pallets, thousands of product lines, for a screw this big. It doesn't work. It should not work, and it does not work. So basically, the only solution to this problem is when basically orders are committed, you have to accept a reasonable time frame between stuff being entered into stock and orders actually being sent, which is it's not really acceptable in a modern warehouse environment, to say the least. Anyway, so back to one of the main issues here for a picker. A part cannot be identified on a pallet because labels, which should easily be able to be identified or otherwise marked on a visible area of a carton, are not visible. So now the forklift operator not just has to pull down that pallet, but also has to cut all the wrapping off that pallet, look at every single carton, pull every carton off the pallet, because half the cartons have got their labels faced inwards or their part numbers are buried underneath other cartons, and they end up spending 10 to 15 to 20 minutes to look through a pallet to go, oh, fuck, it's not there. Fuck, I better go check the computer system. Oh, fuck it, yeah, it only just came in. So the simple solution to this is that all cartons and parts on a pallet must be visible at least by part number or note. No, actually, that's wrong, not by note. At least by part number, period. So the way you do this is you have your labels on your cartons facing out. So how do you do that? Labels and identifying information must be facing out or visible. Right? So there's like just a really simple brainstorm. How hard is it to do? It is fucking piss easy. Any receiver, any put away operator worth their salt, who is worth paying them money, can do that. Okay? If you have lots of little cartons and you have to bury some of them, don't. Or have a piece of paper on the pallet in the shrink wrap, not stuck in front of a part number, like just a piece of paper loose, like on the top of the shrink wrap or something, saying part number so-and-so is buried in the middle of the pallet. Okay, how many cartons can you fit on a pallet? Quite a lot. You'd be surprised, actually, but it's not hard to actually fix this problem. This is due to lack of training, or getting away with blue murder, workplace politics. So, and basically, what are the effects here? So, forklift operator must spend additional time looking through palette. Forklift operator can now investigate where the part is. It's kind of like a workshop, right? Basically, I work as a forklift operator, so I am like explaining. Basically, what I'm going to do is I'm going to be workshopping through the problems that we face in our current workplace using a Japanese concept called Kaizen, which is that of continual improvement, and analyzing simple problems that we've got that can be solved by simple solutions, right? And basically people doing their job right, like proper accountability. Okay. So the effect here is that the forklift operator must spend additional time, and solution, all cartons, blah blah blah. Forklift operator can now investigate where the part actually is. Yeah. It's not really rocket science. That's the point. It's actually not rocket science. It's really simple. Like it's the most simple thing you can do. It's like as simple as having an address book with people's names in it and their address and their phone number. That's all it is. It's as simple as that. So like if you want to find out what someone's phone number is, you just open up the address book and say, okay, yeah, that's their name, that's their number, that's their address. Bingo! Now I know where they live, right? It's the same thing when you're looking for parts in a warehouse. Absolutely the same thing. You're basically looking at a phone directory. It's really simple. But what makes it not simple is when you have people who don't know what they're doing in their job, or don't have the correct training, or are not following correct processes, and they basically shit rolls downhill, right? Everything just snowballs. And everything starts at the start, which is like your receivers, right? Nah, I would say where I work, but basically that would be against contract, so I'm not allowed to. And considering I'm making a YouTube video about it, I cannot publicly make available the place of my work because essentially that may damage reputation, so on and so forth. I'm not allowed to do that. So anyway, the point is that I'm sitting here to workshop our ideas of how to fix the problem. I'll talk about the problem and explain the problems, and just at the end of it, I'm going to have a simple process that people can follow. And yeah, like basically, yeah, this is your job. This is what you do. This is what you should be doing. I shouldn't have to do this, but I'm doing it. Think, yeah, a bit more complicated than Walmart though. I don't work for a supermarket chain, if that's what you're asking. If you wanted to take a couple of stabs in the dark, I've already mentioned that I work with part numbers. So we're talking electronics and machinery and capacitors and screws and bolts and all that sort of stuff. And I'm not talking about a hardware chain either. Oh, okay, scan finished. Okay, so I'll make these smaller so that they can actually, I'll change like the actual font. Make it a type 6 font. Because we're going to need some things here. And I fully intend on showing this to people that I work with. Once I'm actually completely finished, I'm going to make another video where basically I just go over everything and from start to finish and just explain everything. Whereas what I'm doing right now is I'm just sort of like brainstorming the problems. And because I've studied information systems, I do know that I'm not using the correct flowchart diagram symbols. So by the time I get to that stage, I will have a much better flowchart. Right now I am in the simple, sort of like initiation stage of the system development lifecycle. Anyway, I've rabbited on enough. So this is just like a simple scenario, right? That one that I just put there. So I'll leave that as it is. Forklift operator can now investigate where the part is. Simple. Let's move onwards from that one now. Probably get rid of that. Forklift operator checks IMS records and determines that the part has only just been booked in, or should I say entered into active availability, I suppose, in the order ring system. Yeah, it's probably a good way to put it. Where the fuck did I put my matches? Okay, so the next one from that is problem. Right? The part is mixed in with thousands of other parts on dozens of, well, on maybe, you know, dozens of pallets. So now the forklift operator has a choice. In order to find that part, they now need to go through and check incoming stock which hasn't been put away yet, which isn't currently in location. And because it's not in location, it's not as simple as just checking one location. It's having to check everything. And you might get lucky and find it straight away, or you might be looking for it for 3 hours. This goes back to this problem. So basically, if the thousands of other parts on dozens of pallets, if you cannot identify everything on the pallet that's sitting on the ground, you cannot actually find it easily. You have to sit there and search through the whole thing, right? So all cartons and parts on a pallet must be visible at least by part number, right? Though that isn't absolutely correct, because we're not talking about one pallet. We're talking about dozens of pallets. This is like a spaghetti flowchart, if I put it in that actual term. So, as put away operators take cartons and parts out of receiving, a list of what parts are on the pallet must be created. One copy to be kept with the pallet, and one copy to be kept at the receiving / put away office on the floor of the warehouse. I cannot stress enough how important that is. So as stuff has been identified by receivers who are admittedly kind of doing their job right, they are identifying the parts, writing the locations and stuff on the cartons or the parts packaging, and they are putting it on pallets ready for a put-away operator to grab and put on a pallet and take out of the area to go put it away, basically. Or in this case, they're not taking it out of the area and putting it away. They're taking it out of the area and putting it on the floor for someone to put away when they get round to it. Which doesn't work when you and I both know that. Like, where? I'll put my fucking lighter. I have to keep my lighter on me. This is going to be a long one. Okay, so as put away operators take cartons and parts out of receiving, a list of what parts are on the pallet must be created. One copy to be kept with the pallet and one copy to be kept at the receiving put away office on the floor of the warehouse. Forklift operator, when able to identify that a part is only recently received and in transit between receiving and its correct location in the warehouse, racking forklift operator, when able to identify that part is only recently received and in transit between receiving and its correct location in the warehouse or racking. Must check list at office to identify which pallet and where the pallet is. Before checking the pallet on the floor for the part. Oops. And to make this easier for the forklift operators and for the people doing this, list of what parts on the pallet must be created and the date it was entered into the system. The location of the temporary holding pallet must be recorded and kept on both copies. Spaghetti flowcharts, yay! Okay, so now the forklift operator can search for parts that are in transit between receiving and their proper location. It's as simple as that. It takes a little bit longer to find it, but you can actually find it, and you don't have to spend hours looking for it. Like, say if someone grabs a couple of, they go into receiving, they grab 10 cartons, they write down 10 lines on a piece of paper, they write down the date if it has been booked in. If it hasn't been booked in, don't need a date on it, obviously. But when it actually has been booked in, for those parts that have been booked in, you go and put the date on the piece of paper, right? Or if you are aiming to have it done on a certain date, and it must be done on that date, then you do that. You just put down the estimated date, like the date that you are going to do it. When I say estimated, it's probably not you are going to do it, but you get what I mean, right? So basically what that means is that in between receiving and its actual location, the forklift operator now, if they cannot find it, we're at its proper location where it's supposed to be, and they've identified that it is a recently received part that's in transit between receiving and its actual location, they can find where it is on the floor, which pallet it is. But they don't need to find out what box it is. I mean, as long as you know that it's on one pallet and that pallet can be searched relatively quickly, like in the order of like 10 minutes, and all labels are facing outwards and things are identified and locations are written on all the cartons, then all you do is you just look for it and like you walk around the pallet and, oh, that one. Like anyone with eyesight can do it. I do it all day, every day. That's my job. All right. So let's make this less spaghetti. And I am talking about a warehouse that has to do stuff using paper, unfortunately, because like access to computer systems, or it can be done by like a spreadsheet. Like it can be typed in and entered into a spreadsheet and printed up nicely and stuck to the pallet or whatever, or just kept with the pallet. Like you can actually enter it in. I'll get into that later. Like say for instance you wanted to run a sort. So say you have different rack locations. Say you have like rack 2 or rack 3 or rack 4 or aisle 1 or aisle 2 or aisle 3. You could have all the part numbers in a spreadsheet and their locations, and you could run a sort to sort by number which one comes first. So sort by 1, sort by 2, sort by 3, and then you've got a list of its actual locations. And then say you want to find out what bay it actually is in a warehouse. So like you got a rack, right? A rack is like this. I'm sure you've probably seen a warehouse, so I'm talking to the converted, preaching to the converted. But say you got a bay, right? So this is what we're looking at when we're looking at a rack as a forklift operator. Close enough. I was kind of hoping I could just copy that, but it won't let me. Okay. Okay, so we'll call this rack 1. This is like rack 1, right? The whole thing. This is bay 1. And then you have your levels. In our particular system, we use 00 as the bottom level. We use 02 as the next level. We use 04 as the next level. And this is so that if we decide to later, we can put in another beam, and then we'll make that top one in there 1. And that's just so, like, if we need to have more space because parts are smaller or whatever, we can just chuck in another beam, and we don't need to change too much. Like, all we need to do is change what's going into here, or into 3, basically. We don't have to change what's on 0 and change what's on 2. It's just one method of making our life a little bit easier. And also, within each bay, you have your A and your B sides. Australian pallet racking has an A and a B side, usually, not always. So basically there'll be one pallet sitting here in the rack, whoop, and there'll be another pallet sitting here. So when we go looking for a part, I come along in my forklift and it goes, now I've got that pallet down on the ground. Right. We don't have thousands of pallets. Well, we do, but we have tens of thousands of parts on those pallets. So basically, one pallet might have 150 different types of parts on it, and you might have 10 different types of parts per carton. And say if a carton is on the A side, it will be A1. Right, and that's box 1, basically, carton 1. And that will be marked on the carton. And if it's on the B side, it will be like B5. So that's box 5. And that's also marked on the carton, or it should be. Though in practice what we do is that if it's on the A or the B side, we still put B1, B2, B3, B4, because it's basically box 1 or carton 1. I should digress. I am digressing when I say that we should stop referring to boxes as cartons, because in warehousing professionally they are known as cartons, not boxes. And anyone who calls a box in a warehouse environment doesn't know their song. It's a carton. A box is like an inner to a carton. So you have a carton, you have boxes inside the carton, and you have eaches inside the boxes. And that makes perfect sense. It's how the unit of measure, UOM, is another warehousing term that people should get used to. This particular warehouse that I work for does not use units of measure. They use a quantity, just one number. So they don't say, oh, okay, yeah, we got 10 boxes. They don't say we've got 5 cartons, 10 boxes, and 2 eaches. They say that we have 152 eaches. You work it out. That's fun, isn't it? It's actually useful in some situations because it's less headache and less fuck-ups for people who know what they're doing. But say, oh my god, say if you get like a casual staff member who's picking and they do not know that a box has 4 eaches in it, and they don't know that a carton has got 4 boxes in it, they'll grab a carton, they'll take it to the packers, and because the packer's probably also a casual, they'll pack that entire carton, send it off to the customer, and they've just received 16 times what they ordered for free, basically. And the business just has to cop that on the chin. Well, that's not how it works. First you caution staff, if they keep on fucking up, you sack them. That's how it works. That's how I work. And it's not the fault of the not completely the fault of the picker, it's also the fault of the receiver, because if the receiver hasn't labeled the carton correctly, then there's no way for the picker to really know without opening the carton. And trust me, if you have to open every single carton, it takes a very long time with this shit, and it's not best business practice for the stuff that we're working with. But the responsibility is there. I hate to say this, but receivers, especially when they're receiving, and pickers when they're picking, if they have even the slightest bit of doubt about what is inside a carton, they should open it. If you don't know for absolutely fucking certain that there's 15 of a certain amount of something in this carton, open it and count it and find out, then put it back in the carton and write the quantity on the carton. That's just standard business practice. Anyway, I digress. So back to the actual flowchart. Let's continue making it less spaghetti. Ah, shit. I'm going to move that point. I should put that on the top because otherwise we don't have a flow down process. Whoop, shit. And you can bet your sweet ass that I'm going to be printing up a copy of this and leaving it on certain people's desks. Because they're not doing their job properly. And if they continue to not do their job properly, well, if I can just leave anytime I want. I don't need to work for them. They're lucky to have me. Because I'm not going to sit there and waste my time tearing my fucking hair out when people aren't doing their job properly. I can go do my job properly somewhere else, get the recognition for it. I love seeing things like, I love actually seeing like efficiency reports saying that yes, we've done the best in Australia. Like our site has performed better than any other site. That sort of stuff pumps me up. That makes me want to go to work. Not, oh fuck, no one's doing their job right. I can't find anything. I can't do my job. So that's basically it. So a part cannot be identified on a pallet because labels which should be easily able to be identified or otherwise marked on a visible area of a carton are not visible. Forklift operator must spend additional time looking through the pallet. That's like just a given. You go down the process, all cartons and parts on a pallet must be visible at least by part number. Labels and identifying information must be facing out or visible. The forklift operator can now investigate where the part is. The forklift operator then checks IMS records and determines that the part has only just been entered into inactive availability in the ordering system. The part is mixed in with thousands of other parts on dozens of pallets. As put-away operators take cartons and parts out of receiving, a list of what parts are on the pallet must be created, and the date it was entered into the system, one copy to be kept with the pallet and one copy to be kept at the receiving put-away office on the floor of the warehouse. The location of the temporary holding pallet must be recorded and kept on both copies. The forklift operator, when able to identify that a part is only recently received and in transit between receiving and its correct location in the warehouse racking, must check list at office to identify which pallet and where the pallet is before checking the pallet on the floor for the part. Yeah. Now the forklift operator can search for parts that are in transit between receiving and their proper location. Do you know how much money that would save my business? Take a rough stab. If you're still listening, take a rough stab how much money that would save. And I won't even get into happier customers because they're actually receiving the things that they need to fix their shit. No idea? Okay, well, Australian dollars, the average forklift operator gets paid anywhere between $29 and $36 an hour, depending on whether or not they're working mornings, evenings, afternoon shifts, the difficulty and the risk of their work, because it's a high risk occupation. If a forklift operator has, say we have 4 forklift operators and they're making the business say $2 million a year net. Average pick time per part before change So equals. So if you're paying insurance and all that sort of stuff, and you're most likely paying a contract company extra rates in order to secure those skilled personnel, because most companies work with casuals these days. They don't work with full-time staff, so they don't just have to pay the forklift operator money, they also need to pay the contracting company money, they also have to pay insurance, they also have to pay medical bills, you name it. Like anyone who gets injured, so we'll just put a rough stab on it at about $45 an hour, roughly, that it costs the actual business to keep a forklift operator employed. Chuck another $10 an hour on top of that for the equipment that they have to use in its service and maintenance. Now we'll make it 60. So average cost is $240 per hour. And average pick time per part before change is see, on a good day I'd pick about 80 to 100 lines. On a bad day I'd pick about 20. So we'll average that out to about, say, 30. So 30 lines. And that's actually quite realistic, really. Times 4 staff equals 120 lines. So average pick time per part before change, 30 lines. Now it's 120 lines a day. And we'll make the average cost of an order that cannot be completed unless forklift parts are picked. Not all the parts are forklift parts, but when you're talking about fixing broken things, you can't just send off half the shit they need to fix it. They need all the shit they need to fix it to fix it. You can't just send them half the fucking order, right? It doesn't work like that. So we'll say that an average order might be about $150 cost. Like, I'm just throwing ballpark figures out, right? This is spaghetti math. So average order equals $200. Average lines per order 2. I'll make it average lines per order 3. Make it even easier for them, right? Because we do get some very big orders and we get a lot of little small ones. The average is out to be about 2 or 3 per order from my own experience, right? So we'll make it 3. So average order is $200. Average lines per order is 3. So that basically means that $240 per hour. Now I'm really gonna have to rack my brain. So $240 per hour, we'll make it a day. We'll make a day 8 hours. So average is 30 lines. So that's 120 lines times 3. No? No. Divided by 3. No, 3 divided by 120. Is that right? I already know what that is. I don't need to calculate. 40. So... No, I'm working it out wrong. Fuck. Spaghetti math! I've never been the best person at math, I'll just put it that way. I'm highly intelligent, but when it comes to math, I hate it. I can do it if I really have to, but yeah. So I've just got to work with the variables that I've got here to work out the cost. So I'll reduce the complication down, I'll just make it one forklift operator. I'll make the average lines per order 3. Average pick time is 30. Just so I've got less variables to work with, and then I'll just multiply it. Easy. So that's 10 orders. So generating $2,000 net, no, gross per day, and the average cost is $240 an hour, so times 8. Whoop, shit. Whoop, shit. It's just being a pain in the ass. 8 equals, and we'll reduce that down by 4 as well, so that's 60. So that's 8 times 60, which is 600 minus 160, so that's 440 per day. So our net is about, I don't know, well, 2,000 minus 440, and trust me, it costs way more than that. I'm just throwing ballpark figures out there, right? So we'll say $1,500 net per operator per day, right? Now, if an operator can pick twice as much, that means that there's going to be 3,500 net. So you double your fucking profit. Or in this case, in our particular situation, we're probably running into negative. Because I doubt it, I highly doubt it's a profit. Like, when it comes to the actual, like, average order, right? So, like, say if you've got, like, 4 operators, right? That's, what? Like 4 times 1,500. And I haven't even taken the wages out of the people who've got to pack it, the receivers and all that sort of stuff. That's just where it goes straight into negative territory, believe it. So do that, like, times 365, take out public holidays, make it 300, and other shit, and sickies. So that's about, 2 million a year. Alright. Was that close? Okay. So we're talking, if we're going from 2 million a year net to 4 million a year net. Just by that. Because if people can't find the product and send it out to the customer and actually dispatch it, then you don't make the money. It's a negative. Way, way negative. And the amount of extra time it takes for a team of 3 people to do that, we're talking about, like, probably 15 minutes per pallet. So about 50 lines? Well, no, not even that. About 20 lines per pallet. Probably only take him about 10 minutes per pallet. And so about, what is it? 0.166. No, 16%. Yeah. 16% of like a of $60 extra cost per hour to generate double. And with that, I'll leave the stream because I shall hash this out further, and I shall do it properly eventually. And I'm not going to bother putting in all the extra processes and all that sort of stuff. I'm not going to put in all the extra wages and all that sort of stuff. I'm just going to look at it at a pure picking perspective for the moment. I'm not going to look at other improvements. I'll just leave that at that. Label and sort and trace the fucking parts. Alright, now I'm going to get into some WoW.